I would like to introduce our last speaker who will be talking about launching a recurring donor program. Now, the reason that I wanted to bring Joy in is because normally we do a big focus on grant writing at this symposium. We hand out the grant books, we do a grant writing scholarship, we talk about how to write grants, we have elected officials come in and talk about how to get grants, and the reality is this year the grants are thin on the ground. Overall quite thin, the grants are. For a variety of reasons I won't get into. But we want to emphasize that you should have what we in nonprofit school used to call the fundraising pyramid. You should have multiple streams of income supporting your organization. Over the years, I've run into a lot of organizations that had one big grant that they got every single year. And unfortunately, you can kind of get a little bit slack, if you will. You can get a little bit too comfortable, a little bit too used to having that money coming in every year, and you forget that you have to build a small donor program. You forget that you have to go through other things, maybe earned income, other options. So a lot of places, maybe they just rely on federal grants and earned income, and they don't go after state or small donors. So you have to be careful that you don't fall into that trap of not getting multiple streams of income going, because if any one of them disappears, and we've seen several of them disappear this year, you need to be able to rely on another one. So a lot of people don't start small giving programs. Those are for the cost of a cup of coffee a day. You can support whatever it is. I date myself by referencing Sally Struthers. But if you are not able, that's also why we talk about finances, if you're not able to articulate the cost of what you do, it becomes very hard to fundraise as well. So that's why we did the budgeting and finance leading into fundraising, because people often come to me and they'll say, I need $100,000. And I say, that sounds like a real round number. Why? Why do you need $100,000? And they'll say, well, for XYZ program, we here at Bob's Cat Shelter need $100,000. Well, how much does it cost to save one cat? Don't know. So I think that that's a really important number that you have to be able to articulate, is how much does it cost to do one unit of whatever it is that you do at your organization. And that's going to really be helpful in an individual giving program where people are going to be giving maybe just that one cat amount. So I think that with that, I'm going to hand it off to Joy, who's going to get you all ready for Giving Tuesday.
Okay, I don't know which microphone I was going to use, but I'll use this one.
Yeah.
That works. I want to thank everybody who's still here. I know from talking to some of you at lunch, some of what I say, if it doesn't apply to your organization, please ask a question when we get to the question part, because I want to make sure that everybody has at least something they can get out of this this today. And some of you already have small and recurring giving programs, and so I'm hoping that for those of you that do, that this gives you the sort of oomph to go back and look at your program and refresh it a little bit. So I'm looking at this not just from a small giving program, but a small and recurring giving program, and then how to really use what's coming up with Giving Tuesday to launch this. And that is a very short time from now, but we have enough time to actually get this one done. Sorry, this technology, this is not my, oh, there we go. Okay. So anyhow, I have about 25 years of experience in nonprofit organizations, different types of fundraising. I've done everything from capital campaigns to major donor campaigns to grant writing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, run organizations and consulted with a lot of organizations in Pittsburgh, across Pennsylvania, across the United States, and even globally on fundraising. So just so you know, I have that level of experience, and I'm coming to you with that experience and with those ideas to try and help the nonprofit community in Western Pennsylvania right now that I know has to be hurting. I'm going to share with you things that are proven. I didn't just pull this out of a hat. These are actual real tactics that can work and ideas that can be implemented at your organization. I gave you all inside of your books, there's a little worksheet that we'll refer back to that you can pull out now. I'll be referring to it inside of this program also, but I want you to be able to take that back to your organizations with you. And some of you may be able to walk away today completely having this ready to go. Some of you might need to have conversations with others in the room. If you basically need to know that you are not the only person sitting at your organization that is going to work on this, look around as I ask some of the questions I'm about to ask and identify other people who are in the same boat as you and use them as like a fundraising buddy to get through this season. Or find a volunteer or a board member that is on board with this stuff and really like team up with them so you're not going this alone this year. Right now, it is very, very stressful in the nonprofit community. We all know the funding scenario is awful. We know that people are having a hard time feeding themselves. We know that people are losing their jobs. That is a fact. We have to work within that environment, but we have an opportunity, and Giving Tuesday is a gift that is being given to all of us by some very, very large and well-funded organizations. And again, here's my contact information. You have that on that piece of paper. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or if you need any additional help with this. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to advance. There we go. Okay, so level setting. Just for the sake of being in this room, how many of you are facing the weight of rising costs and shrinking budgets this year? Like, just look around for those of you that are sitting toward the front. So as a reference point, raise your hand if you're sitting pretty and you're just fine where you were a year ago as an organization. So literally every single person in this room is feeling the stress right now. And it's important that we understand that and that we know that. Who here already has a recurring donor program of any kind? Can you all that are sitting in the front, keep your hands up for just a second. How many of you have looked at that recurring donor program in the last 6 months and asked if you need to do anything to update it? Okay, good. There's like 3, 4 people, 5 people, 6 people in this room that are on top of this. So everybody else, do not feel bad. Just know that those organizations have already invested a lot of time and energy in this. And so for those of you doing this, if there's something else you want to add to this, please feel free to like raise your hand and do that. How many organizations really see Giving Tuesday as an opportunity to raise money? So that's less than half of you, which is a little bit shocking, and hopefully I can convince you otherwise, because I'm telling you it is a gift being given to us right now, and the timing to do this is perfect. True or false? How many think it's true nonprofits can exist without money? Good. Okay. So at least we've got that one out of it. So that nobody raised their hand on that. So we're good. And then just take 1 minute, turn to the person next to you, and come up with like something you want addressed in this. And I'm going to ask for like 3 or 4 shout outs so I'm making sure that I take care of what I need to take care of today by taking care of you all. So just take like 30 seconds, 1 minute, and figure out if there's something specific that you want me to cover today. Okay, let me get your attention back. If you have something in specific that is very relevant, you think will be relevant to most of this room, that you want to make sure is covered, please raise your hand so that I can work it in. Right here in the front.
Our question to each other was, regarding Giving Tuesday, can nonprofits collaborate together, or a business and a nonprofit collaborate for Giving Tuesday and whatever is raised? If it's 2 nonprofits, they could probably split it, or one, how do we say it?
If it's a business, then the business would help to raise the funding, and then the nonprofit would keep the funding.
proceeds.
Just like they were talking about in the beginning of teaming up together like that.
Can you describe how you mean the nonprofit and the business would interact?
Well, she came up with the original idea of doing it, so she could probably answer the best. She was being kind by letting me be part of.
I think I understand.
Does that microphone work for you?
Is this work?
Yeah,
Oh,
there
that
you
is working. Okay. Let's go somewhere in the back of the room. I'll just go random, glasses, dark shirt. Back
If you're able to get to the microphone, please do. Otherwise, I'll come to you.
Thank you. Advice on implementing peer-to-peer fundraising.
Okay. One more question.
how do we open up new donor channels so we're not hitting up the same people again and again?
Okay. I think at least two of those questions are relevant to almost everybody in this room. The first question, not every organization would necessarily find themselves in the boat to be able to think that through rapidly, but certainly these ones are. So what we're going to cover is how to basically go through and think through what Giving Tuesday means, what a small donor program means, what recurring donor programs are and why they benefit the nonprofits and how easy they are to turn on for most organizations, why that all matters. And I'm going to send you home with that worksheet that you have, which walks you through like an action plan that you can start right now while we're in this session or immediately afterwards. The essential elements of an appeal and how to make sure that you're ethically stewarding your monthly donors so that they stick around and you feel good about it and you're not violating any codes of ethics. So that when you walk out of here, you literally have a tool to go and do this and don't have to sit there and say, oh gosh, what did she say again? And wait for these slides to come forward. So fundraising urgency. The top part of this is all about what's going on right now in the world, right? Everything feels like it is urgent and collapsing and it's scary and you wake up and the news is overwhelming and this funding is cut and these people can't eat and these people lost their jobs and these needs and these needs and these needs and these needs. There is literally nothing that any of us can do to control that situation on a national level, on a global level, or in the state of Pennsylvania or in your maybe you can control it in your backyard, right? Maybe. But for the most part, this is just the environment in which we are operating in. For anyone that's been around for a few years, we've had a couple of these environments like this before. COVID did this to us. And there was another major economic collapse not so long ago, right, that did this to us. Pittsburgh area survived that one in a different kind of way than most of the country did. But there were certainly cities where, like I was in Charlotte at the time, and that is a banking city. That city collapsed all of its giving, right? You can't control that, but what you can do is stop and look at your programs and control the narrative inside of your organization with your leadership and with your staff and with your donors in a positive way, right? So you can talk to them about that. Millions of people and millions, probably billions of dollars will be donated between now, certainly from Giving Tuesday through the end of the calendar year. It is going to happen. And most of it is going to come out of individual pockets. And most of it is going to be the bulk, well, the big money comes from like a few people, but the bulk of those donations, when you count up the number of donations, are going to come from people making small donations. And there is no reason that any organization in this room that is a nonprofit cannot capitalize on that and start getting that done. And if you can have that conversation when you leave here and flip the conversation from crisis into productivity, you can get your whole organization bought into this and the energy behind it to make this a success for your organization and in the community. Does anybody doubt that? Good. Okay. What? Oh, I was going to debate them. And I was going to win, and then I was going to use the rest of the audience to prove that I'm right. Because no, in all seriousness, like enthusiasm and energy, right? Like when you talk about your nonprofit and the good work that it does, you talk about that mission with enthusiasm and energy and good work. This is an extension of your nonprofit's work. All this is finding new cheerleaders. Right? This is just getting more people bought in to what you do on a daily basis to make your community better. That's all this is, right? And there is no lack of people that are going to open up their pocketbooks to support your mission if you can articulate to them how you and your mission are going to make the community better and what those dollars that they are going to donate, however small, will have that impact, right? So the benefits of having a recurring donor program, you're stabilizing some of your funding, right? This is money that comes in repeatedly on a monthly basis until you either upset the person and they leave your organization. This happens, right? Or you neglect the donor, or their credit card hits an expiration date, and that's a technical thing that lots of organizations need to figure out how to handle better, or their card gets hacked and they change their card or whatever. But typically, recurring donations do not turn off. It's like a subscription. How many of you have subscriptions that you don't even think about? How many of you, if you had a $5 a month recurring donation to an organization that you felt compelled to give to, and you knew where those monies were going, and that organization was communicating with you consistently, would actively turn that off? But in the environment we're in, how many people would have to think twice about maybe making an extra $60 one-time donation? Right? So it's the same thing, right? It makes sense. And if you do the math on this, right? If your minimum request out there is $5 on a monthly basis, and then you have the opportunity for a $10 donation and a 15 or 25, and I was telling the people I was sitting with at lunch, don't stop really low. Give the opportunity for somebody to make a larger gift when you do this, because you never know who's going to have the cash resources sitting around every month to do this, or is incentivized. Like, you don't want to cut yourself off at the knees and only ask for $5 or $10, but make it really okay that $5 is all somebody can give. And there will be people out there who can't do that, and that's okay too. But by going through this process, you are opening your organization up to having sustainable funds coming in every month that might look small when you look at just that monthly line on the budget, but at the end of the year can add up to a program, right? Or your operating expenses, or whatever these shortfalls may be. And, donor loyalty. This really matters, right? People will continue to give to the organizations that they believed in to begin with, so long as that organization takes care of them and is not rude to them and doesn't forget them and keeps them informed about the good work that they're doing. We know this, and we know that there is less donor attrition from recurring gifts, especially on the smaller side, than there is for one-time giving, right? So that's why this matters. So what I really wonder, what all of you would do if you knew that you had that predictable income coming in. Would you be able to have a sigh of relief? Would you feel like it's going to be okay? And so those are the things, like, you want to carry that message back to your organization, back to your leader, back to whoever it is you need to talk to, so that you're not sitting there isolated tomorrow and on Monday saying, oh my gosh, I need to pull off this recurring donor thing, but I don't have anybody to do this with. Like champion this and talk to them a little bit about this, right? Oops, how do I go back? Shoot. Hold on. Oh yeah, okay, I'm there. Okay, so community momentum. Here's why I am saying that Giving Tuesday is a gift, right? How many of you have already started to see ads for Giving Tuesday on your social media? It's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Okay, so raise your hand again if you have seen an ad. Raise your hand if you've gotten a mailing into your office, your nonprofit office, from the branded Giving Tuesday. No? Okay, at least one. So this buzz is out there. I do not work for Giving Tuesday. That is a brand that I can't steal, but it is a day that lots and lots of money and energy are being invested in to turn on a lot of donations. It happens to be the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving happens to be the beginning of the traditional season in which Americans start to feel very, very generous, right? This year, Thanksgiving happens to come late, so the Tuesday after Thanksgiving just happens to be inside the month of December, and December is the single biggest giving month a year that we have, right? So you have from Giving Tuesday until December 31st at midnight, all these people that are going to give. And you have a month from today, plus a couple days, but call it a month, to get there and turn these programs on and take advantage of that wave of energy that's being sent out to the community. And trust me, the Giving Tuesday people are figuring out where to send that message, right? They're sending that to people who have the capacity to give and the propensity to give. They're sending it to nonprofits. And I'm not saying you need to go sign up for their stuff and brand all of this. You can if you want to. It takes extra time and energy. But I am saying to use the energy that is behind that giant giving movement that is not going to stop to benefit your own nonprofit. There is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with understanding that most people are still programmed to give by the end of the calendar year at midnight. Does everybody know why we're programmed to give at the end of the... Right. And those tax laws may have changed pretty dramatically, but that hasn't filtered down into our subconscious about our giving yet. And there's no reason to say to people, oh, by the way, you don't have to give by December 31st. You're not doing anything wrong by just going with that momentum. What you're doing is you're benefiting your organization by taking advantage of the external environment. We have the external environment that's really, really scary right now, and then you have this external environment that is made up of tradition and large organizations and history that can benefit every single organization in this room, okay? So just keep that in mind. Americans are generous. Pittsburghers are really generous and philanthropic, and the entire large nonprofit community is going to be sending out messages from now until December 31st, and certainly through Giving Tuesday, give, 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 give. And so you just want to make sure that you're standing there with an appropriate ask and an appropriate message from your organization and the conduit for people to easily give donations to you. So to set up a recurring donor program is really, really easy for most organizations. How many of you have a website of any form that can accept donations? For those of you that don't, this is going to be a little bit harder, but you can get through this process with something like PayPal Gives or something and just having like a conduit really quickly there. Now, if you already have that, there is no reason why you should not be able to, on that Donate Now widget, in language above it, encourage people to make their gift that they're about to give a recurring donation. And then when they click on that button to donate, there's no reason why they should not be encouraged to make that a recurring gift, and that your levels of giving would reflect that. In fact, if you default to a recurring gift as the first option that people see, many people will in fact default with you. People give that are going to give when they're asked and give how they're asked. Like they're already bought into giving, right? But if you can explain to them, if you can give $5 a month, $10 a month, $25 a month, that is more impactful to our organization. Absolutely, Abigail. Okay.
Thank you. Should I have my intern for the summer maybe set up all of my donor programs and maybe not write down my passwords? What do you think?
Oh gosh, that's a horrible idea. That's an absolutely horrible idea. So
I haven't updated my website since 2019, but there's a Donate Now button on there, but I don't know where donations go. Is that a problem?
Yeah, that's a problem too. So the first thing, okay, so let's get back to the nuts and the bolts. Like some of you are probably sitting in that situation. So the first thing, Abigail's right, Rep Salisbury's right. The first thing that you need to do is take a look at that. Like open up. You could do it now on your phone if you want. I won't get insulted if you're looking down at your phone doing this. But the first thing that you need to do is look at that and make sure that that's in shape. And then the second thing is making sure that it's updated, the language is updated, all of the stuff is updated there. And then just turn on that recurring donor button. You don't have, this is not rocket science. You don't have to spend 5 hours of like strategic planning to do this. You're if you're brilliant at marketing and writing, fantastic. If you're not going to hurt versus what you have right now, your organization by changing this. Just make sure, yes, the links work, make sure that you know where the money is going, make sure you have the passwords and all of that, and that you're taking care of that in the normal way that you would to protect your organization's resources, right? And then you've got to protect the donor information, all that ethical stuff, right? The second part of this is defining what you're going to ask for, what those tiers are. The size of your organization is to some extent going to define that. I would not anticipate that a really big organization that has a $100 million budget would have a $5 a month giving widget on their normal giving page unless they're trying to do some kind of outreach to high school students or new college, like what first-time givers that have never given. But for a lot of organizations that are small organizations, $5, the price of a cup of coffee these days, almost anywhere. A soda in a restaurant costs $3.95, right? So you're asking people to do that level. Come up with those levels and describe what they are and describe what that benefits. What does that pay for? How many meals get served? How many pets get spayed? How many veterans get services? How many children after school get special services? How many kids in school get special service? Whatever the program is that you have, break it down so that it defines it not only in that $5, but then what that means over the course of a year for both of those. Turn that on and make sure that when you have that set up, that it is set up to automatically give a receipt and a thank you on the other side. You want to make sure that's very important, and this is different than reaching out to the donor individually. But make sure that all of that is working, right? And then if you have the capacity, if you have a list of any kind, try and segment your donors to come up with the message for any Giving Tuesday type emails you're going to send out. If you don't have a list that you can segment, that's okay. Sit down and spend a little bit of time writing your appeals. Stage your appeal so that you're starting to tease as soon as you possibly can tomorrow, Monday, Sunday, whatever, so that you're starting to talk to people and they're starting to get used to seeing the idea that you're communicating with them, and get them ready to make these gifts in the holiday season. Right? Like really start talking to them, design those emails, set up a calendar so that, you know, they say people need to see something 7 times or hear it 7 times before they believe it. Send 7 messages out between now and the time that you actually like launch whatever this day is that you're going to measure the giving, right? Put it on your social media. Make it very, very accessible and spread it out as far as you possibly can so that you're sort of breaking through the noise of what they're going to get from other organizations. You're shaking your head. Oh, no. Oh, okay. Okay. I thought you were disagreeing with me and we were going to, okay. Make sure that your volunteers know about this. Right? And this is a big thing in nonprofits. Like half the nonprofits that I know think that it is sacrosanct to ask their volunteers to participate in fundraising or to support the organization financially. And half of them are totally okay with that. There is nothing wrong with asking your volunteers to donate or to help encourage others to donate. Right? That's a great place to do that peer-to-peer fundraising. Anyone that is connected with your organization and a volunteer, give them the plan and say, listen, we're going to try and get X number of donors on this day of recurring donors. Can you help us? Can you each go out and find 10 people to give to us that day? Like expand your fundraising, right? Make it your mission in the next month as part of your programs to do this. And really, really talk about, this. This is a very low cost way to raise money. This should not, unless you don't have a website at all or you're completely, like there's no conduit for this in your organization, for most organizations, this is going to be, there's some elbow grease that you need to bring, but this is going to be the cheapest way you have to raise money between now and the end of the year. And this does not get in the way of you also asking for a gift right before December 31st. Right? There's nothing wrong with doing that either. You just have to be really tactful in the way that you're doing this and thank your donors and make sure that they know that they're appreciated and communicate with them what benefit they are giving to their community by giving this money through you. Okay, so on your sheet, there's a list of ethical best practices. I don't feel like I need to run through it, but I think that it's important that all of you understand that in fundraising, there are ethics involved. There's like the law and what you can get in trouble for doing, but then there's all this ethical stuff, right? And this includes the protection of the donor's information, and it includes not talking about the donors, and it includes only asking for things that you're really going to spend that money on and whatnot. So I wanted to make sure that you had that. But what I'd like to do is jump ahead to this like Giving Tuesday execution tips idea. So if you look at either on the screen or you look at this the sheet that I gave you, there's this action plan that each of you can do, right? So your step one is get the buy-in from your organization, whatever that means for your organization, cheerlead that. Get your leadership buy-in if you're not the person making the decisions. Get your board enthusiastic about this. Try and get your board or some level of leadership to come up with some kind of challenge match that you can put out there. That is a really good tool to use to raise money. Like if you say to your board, listen, if you guys can pool $250 that we can match to the first group of donors that come through or whatever, you'd be surprised how many people will give a little bit extra because they think they're going to get that match. Public radio's figured this one out really well, right? They get many more donations when they announce on air that they have a match for that hour than the hours that they don't. So do that. Then get your donation page set up for this, right? You're going to need to know before you set this up what you're asking for, what those levels are, and how you're articulating what the money is going toward and how you're integrating that back into your mission. You want to make sure that it's as easy to use as possible. I have been on some donation pages where I clicked donate and I got dropped into basically like a shopping cart. It was clearly set up by a bank or someone, not for a nonprofit organization. Those things are not user-friendly. You don't want to be making a donation of like one item of. You want this to be as seamless as possible. If you're stuck with something like that, go with it. But if you are not stuck with it, then try and set this up to be as simple and as friendly as possible. If you can target your audience and segment it at all, it will be of benefit to you. And by that, I mean think through what you know about the people in your mailing list or who have given before or who are volunteers, and tweak the message that you're giving to them and the ask you're giving to them just enough so that it would resonate more with them, right? If you're involved in like an animal shelter, there are cat people and there are dog people, right? If you know that these are dog people, do not send them a message about how don't send them a message asking them to give suddenly to help the cats because they might not even like cats. That's why they're dog people, or vice versa. I'm using this completely like that's hyperbole. I'm making this up. But the point being, like, tailor your message as best you can to as close as you can get to what you know about that audience, right? And then launch this. Pre-game it leading up to Giving Tuesday, but launch it on Giving Tuesday and launch it with public acknowledgement of your goals. Tell your potential donors what you're trying to raise, how many people you want to donate, how many new recurring gifts, and how much money. Because that will help people feel like they're accomplishing something with this organization that they love on that day. And then steward and thank them. They need to get an automatic receipt so that they know that that transaction went through. And that receipt absolutely should say thank you. But within 48 hours, if you can, make sure they get a really good email that uses their name spelled correctly. Unless they had a typo in their thing, then that's on, I mean, like, you can't do anything about that. But that uses their name, tells them how you're going to use that gift, and thanking them for their generosity and their commitment to making a difference in the world. Like, you want to spread the joy on this one as much as possible. And then you want to follow up with them at least on a monthly, if you can't do monthly, at least on a quarterly basis, letting them know, hey, look, the giving that you have done, this is what's happening because of this. These are the success stories. These are the metrics. And in each of those follow-ups, there's two really important components you should have in there. One is the opportunity for them to increase their giving at every time you communicate, right? Increase or make an additional gift, one-time gift. And the other, and that should be an option where they can make it in the name of someone or in honor of someone, because you never know when that thank you send is going to hit for someone's birthday or hit with some anniversary of something with them. And the other should be that you should make it very clear to them how they can stop giving. That's a really important part of building trust. Most organizations don't do that, but when the donors see that, they're going to be like, wow, this organization really actually cares about me, right? And they're above board, right? They're not doing anything wrong. And then with retention and growth, right? Think about next year's giving cycle already starting now. As you go into strategic planning and budgeting for next year, if you haven't already done it, as you're thinking about the end of the year, think about moving that group of people up to the next giving level and how you're going to tailor your messages to where when you get there next year, you're asking for about a 10% increase in giving, and always make them feel like it's okay if they can't do that, right? So those are like the big tips and tricks for the execution of it. I do not know how to use this computer. I covered a lot of this, right? This is this retention and growth on a budget. Like, this does not cost a lot of money. You don't need to hire a marketer. You don't, in the age of AI, you can generate images as you write, right? Like, and the best messages, the best emails are going to come from the heartfelt soul of the people working day to day on the ground in this organization that want to see it succeed. So you really don't need to go out and contract anybody to do this for you. You don't need a giant budget. You just need to start doing this. Like, literally go home and make this the one thing you do between now and Monday is move in this direction, so that a month and a couple of days from now, you're sitting around and you're saying, wow, we pulled that off. And imagine how good that's going to feel to all of you when you have a win with everything else that's going on out there and you pulled something off that you can show your supporters, right? So, this is really about just sort of shifting your mindset around this, realizing that as noisy as all this stuff is out there, it's not the end of the world for everybody. And there's no reason why everybody in this room cannot write a good appeal, right? You can all talk about your organizations. You can all send out emails and post on your social medias. And you can all turn that little donation widget, make sure it's working. Make sure the donation widget goes where you know it's going to go. Don't get caught up in, well, oh, shoot, if we use PayPal, they take this fee or that fee or whatever. Almost all of them have fees, right? Like, just move forward with it and do this and, like, win this on behalf of your organizations and be part of that, like, small group of organizations that successfully make small giving and recurring giving part of what you really do, right? So if you could take another 30 seconds and on your action plan, like, write down, if you have a pen with you, like, one thing that you're going to do between now and the end of the weekend that gets you started on this. I'm not even going to ask for shout outs on this, but just put your head down and, like, commit to this to yourselves. Okay, so I would really like to just open this up to questions and discussion, because it is the last session of the day, and I think that there's, like, I lectured at you a lot, but I think there's a lot that can come from the questions people will ask or suggestions or intricacies from this, and I'd love to turn it over to that.
If you have a question, please raise your hand or go to the microphone. Otherwise, I'm going to say thanks. Oh, okay.
So you mentioned asking your past donors to raise their donation. How likely it is for people to think that, well, whatever you have in hand is better than what I'm likely to discontinue. Can people think that way? Like, you have been donating every month, and then suddenly you send a letter asking, okay, would you mind raising your donation to that level?
Yeah, so I think it depends.
What is human psychology in that one?
Yeah, so I think it depends on two things. So every human being is a little different in what motivates them, but we know that there are different types of donors that give for different reasons. So to some extent, it depends on the donor and why they are giving. And then to some extent, it depends on what resources they have or don't have at the moment. But the other part of it is how well you've taken care of that donor and how much they can recognize that you've been a really good steward of their money and that you've put it where they've intended it to go. It is not unusual for, like, donors are not going to be mad that you came back around at the holiday season and said, hey, could you make an end of year gift? Maybe one or two like might get cranky, and prepare yourself for that conversation. And
I always like to anchor it to why.
Yeah.
Too. Like, why are you asking me for more money? If I already give $10 a month and you're asking me for 20, why? Just say why.
Yeah, and be ready to explain that. But it really depends on the donor, you know.
Yeah. Somebody else had their hand up. Yes.
Any suggestions for if you have donors that are giving, maybe you get a once a year gift, you know it's coming around, whether it's an event or the end of the year, converting those to monthly givers? Do you want to convert them? Maybe, like, let's say they're giving you even a large amount. Are you approaching those donors to become monthly donors? Would you stay away from those? How would you approach that situation?
So I would do a cash flow analysis for your organization and determine if you can afford to cut down the cash you were expecting to come in December. And if you can have a conversation with that donor personally about how making their giving monthly instead of annually is going to help the organization, it opens the opportunity to ask them to increase what would be their annual giving. We know that when people give monthly, they give a lot more than they would give as a one-time gift, for the most part, right? But I think if you can afford to, I would convert them into monthly, right? If you can't afford to in the way you budget it, and that's a real conversation, then it's not worth it in that regard.
Gitika, coming.
So, what are your thoughts on starting a referral program? If you already have a recurring program, but you want to grow that, starting a referral program, connecting with those recurring donors, and so giving them some incentive. If you refer 5, more like-minded people, then we'll give you this or something like that. What are your thoughts on that? Because I've been contemplating to start that in our nonprofit.
It's an interesting idea. I mean, that's a lot of like peer-to-peer kind of stuff. I don't know if it's completely ethical to offer to give that donor something for referring other people to make the donations. I would, right? Maybe it
Nice
might,
little thermos.
Sure, a thermos or whatever, or you could invite them to be part of like a development advisory committee, which has nothing to do with governance, and give them lunch once a month and sit around and talk. Like, there's creative ways to do that.
Something you should never underestimate is the value of a tote bag.
Oh yeah, tote bags are important.
Yes, question.
I want to thank you because this presentation reminded me that I need to make my list for my personal donations from my family. Because, at the end of the day, the next day I'll go, oh, I forgot to give to this organization. I forgot to give. And it's like stone soup. Every little bit counts. So I thank you, and I'll get my list ready.
Good. Well, and I don't think we addressed the question of businesses partnering with nonprofits. I know there's organizations in this room with people that work for them that have a lot of success in this regard. So I would advise anybody who has done this really well to help our member of the audience over here with some direct ideas. But it's a great idea. If you can find a business that is going to be willing to champion your nonprofit and help you raise that money, either by doing a roundup at the register or putting a donation bin, all the better. Like, there is nothing wrong with that. Right? The more people you can get involved in fundraising for your cause, the more impact you're going to have in your community.
And I will say, if you are looking at this and all of this seems even like a lot, because I know that a lot of people sometimes feel stuck. I was a nonprofit attorney, solo attorney for over a decade. So I would talk to people and they were just stuck because all of this just seems so much. They didn't know how to log into their website. They waited until Monday before Giving Tuesday to get started.
Don't wait.
Don't do that. But I think that one of the recommendations that I would give people is, like people would say, my board doesn't give, for example. Everybody on your board should give something. I don't care if it's $1, but you should have 100% board giving because a lot of foundations want to see that anyway. But what I tell people is sometimes the idea of raise money is too abstract for people. It's too much. And so they're not able to do anything with that because a lot of people, the only fundraisers they've been exposed to are galas, hoagie sales, candy bar sales. Car washes. It's too cold to stand outside in a swimsuit right now. So what can we do? I mean, maybe you have a stronger constitution than I do. I'm not going to do it. But I think that one of the exercises that I always recommend to people is sit down, and I used to do this at board trainings, sit down and ask your board members or your volunteers or whoever it is, write down 20 people that you can ask for $20. That's not that much money. You're going to raise $400 if you get that money from everybody. But a lot of times you'll call somebody and ask them for $20, and they'll say, "Oh, sweetie, I'll give you $100." If you just say, "Oh, you're only asking for $20." So I think that's an option. But the reality of it is what you're doing is you're exercising a muscle. You're exercising a muscle called sales patter, called ask people, called get over the fear, called just do it. Like, there's a lot of people for whom that fear is so extreme that they can't conquer it, that they can't ask for money. And nobody's going to do it if you don't do it, but you have to just get over it somehow. I don't care if you ask them for $5. If that's what it takes for you to be able to ask, then ask for $5, because just exercising that muscle is what is incredibly important. So I really want to thank Joy for coming today.
Thank you.
We're going to provide contact information for all of our speakers after in the next couple of days. I think all of my staff are exhausted. I want to thank my staff for everything that they did preparing for today.